Shabbat Shalom, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Torah in 10, your weekly dose of Torah in context in 10 minutes or less. This week, we're going to be covering Parasha Matot Masei, our numbers 32 to 36:13. I'm Henrik II. Let's get started. Portion recap. Matot Masei are about conquering both the trauma of the past and the land of the present. Yet again, we face a dilemma here at Torah in 10. There is so much to cover in such a short format that I will not be able to touch on all of the wealth of information and contextual knowledge found in these portions. Luckily, we'll be back here next year, so there'll be time then. For now, I wanted to not only lay out the foundations of what occurs within this portion, but also examine a few key points that we see Israel rise above their previous generation and set the stage for what will be the conquest of Canaan. Beginning in chapter 30, with the commandments concerning the taking of vows and their annulment by the father or husband if they have deemed it necessary, though it can be seen in our modern world as a slant against the autonomy of women, we must understand the context of the age in which this was commanded, and that though the father or husband could annul a vow or oath of the woman, that this didn't mean that they weren't still free to make them or have them fulfilled. Indeed, we have to view this through the lens of honor and shame. When a woman married into a family, they were combining two families. This also entailed binding the honor and deities of the families together. In Israel, a man and woman were married in the name of Hashem, but if a woman broke an oath or did not fulfill their oath, now it shamed her family, the family of her husband, and their associated deities, in this case being God. But this being considered, it is only logical that this commandment was meant to defend the honor and social status of the woman and the associated families rather than oppress or belittle her autonomy as a person. Next, in chapter 31, we read the commandments regarding the war against the Midianites. It is within these next few chapters that we see the progress that has been made by this new generation, the lessons they have learned from the previous. Within verses 8 and 13 through 17, we can see a resolution to the terrible incident from chapter 25, and the resolution to the story of Balaam as well. The following verses 19 through 20 also give us a clue into the immediate need for the red heifer ritual and its ashes, as the men who went to war are contaminated with corpse impurity. From this chapter, we not only get an example of Phinehas performing the role as the priest of war, but also see how Hashem commands the spoils of war to be divided, setting aside a portion for the Lord, but going to Eleazar in a clear sign to the people that though God claims these spoils, he has no need for physical objects like the other deities of the ancient Near East. At the end of chapter 31, in verses 48 through 54, there is a fantastic example of a freewill offering being given from the commanders to God for protection and the preservation of life during the battles. Chapter 32 shows the differences between the current generation and the previous. This also gives us insight into the hurt and trauma that Moses still carries from the incident of the 12 spies, with his reaction to their proposal and settlement east of the Jordan in verses 6 through 15. Notice in the exchange during this chapter that God does not directly speak to Moses or Eleazar. Moses is yet again standing up for the honor of God in the eyes of the people and trying to preserve his sovereign's integrity as the deliverer from Egypt into the Promised Land. As we see, however, the men of Gad and Reuben make a commitment or an oath that they will not only help with the other tribes in their conquest, but be at the forefront of the army. With Moses standing as a witness of this oath being made, the portion then continues in describing the driving out of the Amorites and begins to recount the journey of Israel thus far through chapter 33. In chapter 34, we are presented with the boundaries that are set, not by Moses or the leaders of the tribes, but by Hashem himself. The land is then divided per the allotment previously touched on in chapter 26. The leaders are named to assist Moses in his task. Chapter 35 covers the topics of both the Levitical cities and the cities of refuge. I've included a map of these cities for your reference so that you can see how prevalent they were. Remembering that the prevailing judicial system at this time was the idea of eye for an eye, or reciprocal justice. Having designated cities for those that are innocent of accidental murder is unique in the ancient Near East and shows the mercy that Hashem gives to his people, being truly innocent until proven guilty. Finally, this portion ends with the conclusion of the story to the daughters of Zelophehad, who are now concerned with losing their inheritance by marrying outside of their tribe. To preserve the honor of their father and the ancestral claim of the tribe of Manasseh, the daughters are to marry anyone they wish within their tribe. With this commandment, the idea of tribal infighting and border disputes is now put to rest to allow Israel to dwell in peace once the Lord has conquered his land. Within the events of Matot Masei, Moses receives commands regarding oaths and their annulment. War is waged against Midian for their role in the enticement and attempted destruction of Israel. The spoils of the war are detailed and how they are to be separated amongst the tribes and offered to God. The tribes of Reuben and Gad speak with Moses about settling east of the Jordan River for the pasture lands. Moses is enraged by this, but after the leaders of the tribes swear an oath to fight in the conquest of Canaan, they are allowed to settle. The journey of Israel from Egypt until this point is recounted. Boundaries of the land of Israel are set by God. Laws of Levitical cities and cities of refuge are established. The inheritance of Zelophehad's daughters is maintained with the commandment of intertribal marriage for the maintenance of land allotments. Did you know the amount of gold brought by the commanders of Israel as a tribute to God after the campaign of Midian weighed nearly 440 pounds? The list of destinations that Israel visited and encamped was considered to be a genuine ancient Near Eastern itinerary, similar to those used by Thutmose III in late Bronze Age Egypt, or Tiglath-Pileser III of Assyria to recount their travels and conquests. The pasture lands extending roughly 1,500 feet from the walls of the Levitical cities was used for the tithe animals rather than crop production. Question time. What was the reason for the purification in Numbers 31, 19 through 20, and what ritual was this tied to? What tribes wanted to settle east of the Jordan? How many cities of refuge were established? Happy studying, and Shabbat Shalom.